What is up, guys? Welcome to the Unfazed Facts podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things Gym Leader Challenge. I'm your co-host, Joshua Benson, and I'm with Jeff Baisch, and we're here to talk some Gym Leader Challenge with you guys. We're excited to be here, and we got President's Day tomorrow, so I got to work. I get double pay, but Jeff has a whole day for himself. What will Jeff do?
Besides thinking about all the amazing presidents that we've had, Josh, I mean, the Andrew Jacksons, the Teddy Roosevelts. I shouldn't say Andrew Jackson, but he's got a whole museum of things dedicated to things he's broken. Like, whenever you are like famous or important enough to have a museum of things you broke, come on. That's pretty cool. So, I'll be thinking about presidents.
Broken.
But, at the same time, I get tomorrow off, and we're going to be doing a Gym Leader Challenge stream. I got someone from our locals is coming over. We're going to do a tabletop stream. It's been a while since I did some tabletop, so I'm excited to get back to playing just a whole bunch of Gym Leader Challenge. I'm picking out decks every year. I'm making Dusk Buddies. I got Watto's Dusk Buddy list. I'm just like, oh, yeah, I get to play all my fun stuff today. I'm so excited about it, Josh.
Man, don't we all love GLC a little bit, a lot of bit, way too much? And if you like GLC, if you like Gym Leader Challenge, and if you haven't heard yet, we have every Thursday nights, something has started to occur. And that is the Tricky Gym Live channel, aka used to be the Tricky Gym VOD channel, now has lives for any time that Andrew Mahone goes live. You'd be able to subscribe to this. And anyways, they have Full Grip Thursday night locals. At their time, I believe 7 o'clock. So 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, they have their local Full Grip Games GLC tournaments, and they're a blast to watch. Have you watched any yourself, Jeff?
Yeah, I've had a couple of chances to real briefly get a glimpse about what's going on. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it, but it's like, I didn't have to watch it. Like, I just get to hear all the discussion after the fact. And I say hear, but like, it's just like all the chatter and the discords and all of that afterwards. It's really cool and unique. So it's been great. Like, Logan and I changed our stream nights from Thursday to Tuesday so we'd have a chance to watch it. But again, just haven't had that chance yet. But I know it's super huge for the community because, like, some of our heroes are up here playing, right? Like Alex Carpenter's been killing it. You got Ben Peacock, who I think Ben Morse has been out a little bit, but man, when he plays these spread decks, they're super awesome. I just love to see it. So it's really cool just to get a glimpse into the homeland of Gym Leader Challenge and what their locals looks like.
Man, I've been enjoying it, being able to, because I don't get to enjoy it that often on the old stream schedule where, I was working, you're working, and we don't get to really enjoy the stream. So us, people that have to work in the mornings or whenever that stream's going on, I kind of enjoy being able to just kind of chill at home and get in a few games, not myself, but be able to watch a few games and just kind of chill out for a little bit. Sometimes my wife is like, are you going to watch that? Like while we're doing stuff, and I'm like, no, and I'll turn it down real quiet and just kind of keep it off to the side. And every now and then I'll be like, oh man, that's awesome. She'll be like, what's going on? Nothing. Jump a little bit of GLC.
Dude, for me, it's like, this is my time to organize my cards. Like, I got up on one screen, I'm looking at a deck list on the other screen, trying to organize my cards, get a deck list together, and just every now and then just look up and check out some Gym Leader Challenge. Like, that's what I feel like this is going to be for a lot of different people. Just that moment to engage outside of those daytime hours, because you mentioned 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's great to get these late night streams. And again, you're not just watching Mahone, you're watching whatever the top performers on the night are. So it's really cool to see a lot of different decks, not just Andrew Mahone's favorites and whoever he's brought on's favorites. These are just brewers, and you got a lot of cooks over there at Full Grip Games.
Yeah, you got a lot of different diverse decks, and just it's pretty fun to watch. I've been having a blast being able to, be a part of that and see that. And it'll be on Twitch and YouTube now that he made that new channel. So that's really awesome. But one of the first tournaments that was, on stream, since then, I think, didn't Alex Carpenter win with a psychic deck, but we have Michael Zealy, the week prior, winning with a colorless deck. And we all know that we love colorless. This is one of those Turbo Lax colorless, soon to going to be, a double Snorlax Turbo colorless, which I'm excited for a world with 2 Snorlax. I don't even play colorless besides like the other day, and I'm excited just to see what happens. But this deck is really fun because it plays. I don't see that Cyclozar that much. That hits 70 plus 70 if you play a supporter that turn. So not only does it incentivize you to find a supporter, but if you play it, you get to hit for 70 extra damage with that Cyclozar. And then if you have damage modifiers, you're hitting a little bit more. So that's all. It's like, do you want to play the free retreat one, or do you want to play the one that hits hard? And I'm up in the air. I've been playing the free retreat one just because I like to be able to get in and out if need be. But I know, Jeff, that you really like this Dodrio. I am a fan of it myself.
Yeah, I really like this Dodrio for like a couple different reasons. Like obviously you have Fan Rotom here, so Fan Rotom's Fan Call lets you get 3 colorless Pokemon with 100 HP or less and get them to your hand as long as it's been your first turn. So like having Doduo in there and Dodrio, which is a 100 HP Pokemon, just gives that Fan Rotom a little bit more flexibility. And let's be honest, when has colorless ever missed a turn 1 Fan Rotom? Like it has to be prized basically because there's so many outs to get it going. So like that is a great include to pair with this Fan Rotom. And then the Dodrio is also great in another aspect besides being just reasonable support, right? Like drawing you a card every turn. It's a 1 energy attacker, which is just something that this deck really needs because like everything else is almost like 3, right? Like Kangaskhan is 2, but like everything basically requires 3 attachments, which is like DCE plus like the Mela or the Raihan that you see included in these deck lists. But, besides being a 1 energy attacker, besides being something you can grab off Fan Rotom, a lot of people are starting to tech like these can't be damaged by basic attackers into their list, right? We saw a Nidoqueen kind of be like a meta choice deck for a little bit. We saw Ice Cube make an appearance. We talked about Evan Wiki's list a couple weeks ago. So having an evolution Pokemon that can actually do big damage is actually kind of smart. And I love to see that Dodrio inclusion in this list. So shout out to Michael for that.
Oh yeah, Dodrio is pretty awesome. And it gives you that, extra card draw if you put a damage counter on there really well. And we have like the Instruct, Oranguru, and Dodrio that draws, and we don't see any Chinchino. I'm a big fan of the Chinchino make do draw 2. But in this style of deck right here, you don't necessarily need it as much because you do have some outs to more drawing.
Yeah. It's like it's a weird like contrast, right? Because like with Skwovet, Oranguru, and Barrel, you get to just like filter so many different cards, and you're not ever going to have a hand larger than 5. So like Cinccino is really good at like building these big hands, whereas like this engine that we see on screen is just really good about filtering and trying to find exactly what you need. So I have seen them work together in tandem very well. If you're like a fan of the Crazy Code list, they're great, but again, it's just pick your poison. There's Colorless has so many draw options. You could just play it as much as you like.
Yeah, I do agree that like in a colorless Crazy Code type of deck, you would want Chinchino, but on the other hand, if it's more of a turbo build, 100%, you probably don't need it as much. But you know what you need? You know what I need? You know what the world needs? A bigger whale, a bigger fish. There's always a bigger fish. And in Journey Together, we get that bigger fish. This guy should have jumbo sized on his name, but no, it's just the Whelmer and or Wailord, and it has 240 HP. Really, a little bit bigger than the old guy. Old and busted, new hotness. That I think it was Rush Hour 2 or something. Was it Rush Hour 2? I think it was Rush Hour. He was like old and busted, new hotness. Anyways, that's whatever I thought of whenever we were talking about this Wailord, Jeff. I love this new Wailord that come out. I really liked the old Wailord. The old Wailord was really good. And then we got another new Wailord, the jumbo size one, which we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. But then we got this new Wailord, and it's just crazy. We just got so many big fish to choose from, and they're kind of 2 different style decks. But we got this Wailord right here, 200 HP, the old one, Hydro Pump 10 plus 40 per water energy attached to it. It does take 4 energy to get going. So the minimum amount of damage you're going to be doing right there is 170. And then on the other hand, we got the bigger Wailord, 240 HP. That's, again, the same amount of energy that you're going to be using to get that power going, but it's 50 per energy, 10 plus 50. So the minimum you're going to be hitting with that is 210. And then you put another energy on there, 5, which isn't that hard at all to do in water. And you're hitting for 260 damage, which is going to knock out anything without tool modifications or anything like that. And then if you really wanted to get through a Lux Cape, which that's what you're going to be hitting through, you can throw it another energy on. And there you go. It's that easy with the new Wailord.
Yeah, and it's pretty busted. I mean, like, when you look at the new Wailord and all that it has to offer, it's just like a straight up upgrade from Watervale Wailord, like the Viv Wailord. So, in that aspect, hey, it's great, busted. And then you look at like where we are in what's our perceived meta at the moment, and you look at jumbo-sized Wailord, which has the damage reduction, it has 200 HP, but it takes 30 less damage, and it can do 240 for 4 energy, so it's up there in the same damage scale, but it's pretty easy to kind of tech for, right? You can attack it from a lot of different angles. Hex plus 200 damage is a way to get rid of it. Copycat attackers is a way to get rid of it. And that's really the big one, like Mimic You or Foul Plays or Work are just really, really clean, easy answers to jumbo-sized Wailord. And then you look at this new Wailord and you're like, cool, what is the tech for this? You can't copycat it because it does damage based off of energy attached, water energy attached. It's 240 damage. Hex plus 200 doesn't get there anymore. There's an extra 40 that you need to figure out. And then like the other next biggest mon, like you see like 230 on Okie Dokie, but it's like a fake 230 because it get boosted by its ability, so you can attack that card in different ways. So it's kind of like this 190 Torterra to this like 240. There's like this 50 damage gap between kind of the big boys of GLC, and it's just like, how are you going to attack this new Wailord?
Yeah, I mean, he is the biggest boy in the world of Pokemon, besides Yveltal, I think. Not Yveltal, what is that legendary that's huge? Well, anyways, he is one of the biggest boys in the game. So, it only comes with him being big and blubbery and so big to hit. It makes sense to me. But, in the game, this guy's going to be really hard to hit. And it's crazy. 240 HP on a stage 1. And that is just, unheard of. Yep. But I agree with you that this guy is going to be even harder to hit than the jumbo-sized. Even with all of the abilities and stuff like that going for it, you still can just turn it off, field blower, a pot helmet off or anything like that. But with this 240 HP, you have to hit the 240 HP or at least be able to whittle it down. But if you're whittling it down, you're still taking multiple turns to take it out. So, yeah, this Wailord is going to be doing some work in GLC, 100%.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to, when you look at the new Wailord, you're going to have to attack the engine of the deck, right? Like you're going to have to maybe either boss up the Wailmer early. And if you're bossing up the Wailmer, are you really thinking about bossing up the Wailmer, or are you going to go after the Rain Dance engine or the Inteleon Shady Dealings engine? So I think ability lock is going to be a lot better. Obviously, because this doesn't have an ability, cards like Weavile that do damage based on abilities is actually a little bit worse in the water. I just feel like this card has kind of transformed where water is on the whole. So I think Wobbuffet and Galarian Weezing are kind of the two cards that I'm hopefully people are playing them to keep water in check, because if not, I just don't see a lot of predators out there for our giant whale friend.
I know, and some of the new cards, I believe, I can't remember what card it is for Psychic, but it hits for 220 for 3 energy. It's a stage 1.
It's like Claydol, I think. Say that's Claydol or something.
Yeah. But that's pretty cool where it can hit 220. You just got to discard everything. But then again, Psychic has a lot of different ways to kind of get that out pretty quickly. It is, not a tanky Pokemon. But I mean, there are probably going to be new ways coming out in the future of answers to hit this 240 Wailord. Because I believe that they're trying to, slowly make it to where in standard, make it to where these single prize decks can kind of fight back against these big EX decks that are coming out. And who's to know about the new gimmick that's coming out as well. So there's all sorts of different things that we can have for the future. But for now, this guy is going to be forced to be reckoned with.
Lightning stocks up. Find yourself a lightning build that works for you. I don't know if like lightning spread is necessarily going to be the answer because like Manaphy exists in water, but like, find yourself maybe like a Regieleki deck or something like that. Regieleki can KO this in one shot and then put 40 damage on the bench. Like, I think lightning is going to see more play, maybe because this card exists, because water will kind of see an uptick because it's already being played by everyone, right? So it's going to see even more of an uptick, I think. Get your lightning list ready, chat. It'll be good.
Yeah, and you can play the new Zapdos that hits for like 190, I think. You can play the new Tapu Koko that helps set up things, but also hits pretty big as well. So there's going to be definitely answers in lightning that can, if everybody's playing water, lightning will just go up. But if you're having trouble choosing what you're going to play, we're going to talk about that today. That's going to be our main topic today. Choosing a type and gym leader challenge. Now I'll get to some of my story. I'm sure Jeff will get to some of his story and experiences and stuff like that, kind of going into why we chose our first type when we get to it. But when choosing a type, there's all sorts of different things that you can think of. And I want you guys to think of PEAP. Okay? PEAP. Playstyle, experience, availability, and Pokemon. So you have all these different things that you're going to be thinking of, and it's going to be easy if somebody in the Discord or somebody doesn't know what to choose, just tell them PEAP. All right? And this is going to be easy for everybody to remember. Say it with me. Playstyle, experience, availability, Pokemon. You didn't have to say it with me, Jeff.
I was going to.
It would have been hilarious if you did, though.
I actually thought we were just going to say PEAP together, so I was loading up to be like, PEAP, let's get to it. And then you went off and actually said what the acronym means, and that lost me. I want to say, Josh came up with this, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I really, really wanted to make it a word. Like I wanted to make it paper. Yeah. I was like, let's squeeze an R in there. Like, hey, all these things. And at the end of it, regret. Because you picked the wrong type, and now you got to go back and pick the other type. Let's throw an R in there. But we couldn't get to it. We've decided that the R was superfluous, and we stuck with PEAP. We stuck to Josh's gut with PEAP, and I'm really excited about this acronym because I can't tell you, Josh. I mean, every day, whether it's online, whether it's on social media, or whether I see it in these Discord chats, there's someone that's like, "Hey, I'm looking to get into Gym Leader Challenge. What should I be looking for?" And there's not a lot of resources for that. Yes, the Gym Leader Challenge website has wonderful things like, hey, these are the decks of each type for you to kind of go and look at. But it's not like, I want to say, it's not necessarily detailed in like, hey, you're starting out. Why did you want to play this in the first place? And I think that's what we're going to get to talk about today is like, what do you want to get out of Gym Leader Challenge? What are you looking to get from the type that you're going to pick? And that's what I really, really want to talk about because, again, we could sit here and be like, yeah, Turbo Colorless is the best deck all day, but you might not be a competitive player. Your experience is going to be different than everyone else's, and that's what PEAP is going to be all about.
Oh, yes. If anything, just use this as a guide to be able to make your decision or help somebody else make their own decision. But we're going to go off onto the first one. We got Playstyle, and with Playstyle, you have decks that are aggressive, very aggro decks that get the job done very quick, but can also run out of steam. So if you're into that, you got to make sure that if you run out of steam, you know how to, combat that as we go. Then you have more well-rounded decks that these are very good for beginners that can do just about everything, but not one thing really great. And then you have Tank and Heal, which you're really trying to build up a big Pokemon, kill it, keep it alive, and take your prizes that way. We got Control, where we're controlling the other player. And if you're into making sure that you don't want your opponent to have fun, or if you don't want them to play the game, you can play Control. There are some Control decks, though, that are kind of fun that allow your opponent to play, but you're still controlling the game to a point. Some of those I actually do like. And then we got Spread and Snipe. this might be one of Jeff and I's favorite is spread and snipe, to where we can just kind of, there's lots of things that you can do. There's so many decisions that you can do. And I'm excited to get into that portion. But we got aggro decks. And I'm going to let Jeff start this off by talking about his favorite Raging Bolt.
Yeah. Like, aggro decks are great, right? Josh alluded to it the first time. You're trying to take the first prize and you're trying to stay ahead the entire way. Well, Dragon just got this new card printed, Raging Bolt. I love this card so much. Dragon has access to double energies. You'll notice another type on our screen that has access to these double energies, colorless as well. So when you have an energy that can be attached, or your 1 energy per turn, but produces 2 energy, like you have the possibility for some aggressive starts. So Raging Bolt is just one of the pieces in Dragon that lets it get that way. Thunderburst Storm does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So you can go active or bench for each energy attached. So again, you go that DDE, that's 60 to the bench or 60 to the active. Add a tool for some enhanced damage. Or if you even get that, you go first and your first attack isn't till 2, you could potentially have 90 to the bench, which almost hits every single evolving stage 1 in Gym Leader Challenge. So just Dragon can be aggressive off the start. You've even got things like Drampa, which can just hit 70, potentially up to 160 in Dragon too. So Dragon used to kind of be known as this donk deck. So if you're into donks, Dragon Donk is a thing. And of course, Colorless Donk is a thing too, Josh.
Oh yeah. And Colorless is about to get insane with the donk potential. With the new Hop Snorlax coming out and that the new Hop's Choice Band, and being able to get a double energy on there, because that Hop's Choice Band lets you hit for 30 more and takes your energy usage away by 1. All you have to do is slap a DTE, or not a DTE, or a twin energy or a double colorless energy, and you're hitting for, what is it, like 170, 190?
200.
Or,
yeah,
200. Yeah, 200. Like out the gate first turn. It's pretty great. So Colorless about to get way more aggressive in this next set coming up. And then you got Zapdos. Zapdos is one of my favorite ways to be aggressive in different deck building styles of the Lightning deck. And I like this one because you have to make sure that you're getting switched in that turn, but you're able to hit 80 damage. And then if you have a muscle band, you can hit for 100. If you have any damage modifiers, it just allows you to hit for a little bit extra with that Zapdos. But Zapdos is one of those very, very donk style decks. And then I see that you put this Alolan Meowth here.
Oh yeah. Spoil the fun, baby. Has there ever been a more aptly named attack in Gym Leader Challenge? Because Spoil the Fun is a conditional attack, just like Zapdos attack requires you to switch to the active that turn to be able to do extra damage. Well, Spoil the Fun literally only works if you go second, and you can only use it during your first turn. So it does 10 plus 60 more damage. It's a free attack. So that's even easier to get into the active because you can attach, energy to the active and retreat into this Meowth, and it's a free attack. So that's great. But again, just 70 damage on turn 1 is just like, I'm asking just to donk and win the game from there. And that's where kind of these Turbo Dark builds have gone from. And you'll notice here that there's the Hoopa too, which is almost the exact same thing as Zapdos, but it does 10 extra damage, but it does have to have switch. And, Dark, just like Lightning, has some tools that really can help it get into the active, free retreaters in the type, different tools, and, Cascade Rope and Goose are always options too. So, if you're looking to donk, get ahead early. Like, these are some of the best types to do it. Dark, Dragon, Colorless. Lightning's had a bit of a falling off since Raiku's gone bye-bye. You're seeing more spread builds kind of show up. Zapdos still just gives you like an aggressive early play, and it's really good. So aggro for the win.
Yeah, lets you just chip away. That way you can, put that 80 damage on there and then be able to, clean something up later with either an Electivire spread or a Raichu spread attack, anything like that. And then, Hoopa is just a better Zapdos, unfortunately, for Zapdos. It has just 10 extra everything. Just HP, which gets you out of range on things, damage, which gets you in range for things without having to ask too much or attach or anything like that. But aggro, if you like to be aggressive, get the job done early, go aggro. And then you have some of your more well-rounded decks. These decks are great for beginners, but they're also great if you just like a deck that is a, jack of all trades that allows you to be able to kind of pick and choose what you do whenever you are playing. And speaking of picking and choosing, Dragonite, Gallade, Roserade, and Teleon all have abilities that let you just search your deck for anything you want, basically. Dragonite has fast call ability that lets you search your deck for a supporter card. Same thing as Buddy Catch Gallade. Roserade has the ability La Perfume. Whenever you put that, evolve it, that turn you get to search your deck for a card. So it could be any card that you want. And then Inteleon has the Shady Dealings as well as the Drizzile Stage 1. So that entire line is really good, but it lets you search for any trainer card that you have in your deck. And then you got poor Slaking over here just being lazy. But that ability Lazy is actually really, really helpful in situations where you want to turn off your opponent's abilities, such as these guys that have it. And then with all the colorless draw potential that we talked about earlier on the podcast, Slaking is really good at just like being a powerful attacker as well as being able to slow down your opponent. It's basically a hex, but always there in the active as long as you stay in the active. One of my two favorite cards in this is going to be Inteleon and Slaking, as they are very, very versatile. Slaking in the attack, but Inteleon also is really good at hitting 120 for a cheap attack and being able to hit 20 on the bench, which sometimes allows you to get a double knockout. But I know that Jeff really loves grass. So I'm going to let him talk about like what grass potential you can have with La Parfum.
Yeah, and the first thing that probably needs to be pointed out, and Josh, you alluded to it there, is like when you look at all these cards that we have on the screen, and when you look at these types, they all have a lot of flexibility into what they're doing. Josh mentioned the role compression, like you have great attackers with great abilities too, and then beyond that, just like the consistency that these types have, which allows you to be flexible. Obviously a lot of these are search cards on our screen too, and then Josh mentioned all the draw power that Colorless has. Well, to be honest, if there's an imposter on the screen, it's probably grass. I mean, Roserade is busted. 90 HP lets you search up any card from your deck. That's level ball searchable. And then you add into the fact that grass has like all of the search, like all the Pokemon search you ever need to get this Roserade out and going. The issue is, grass is really, really, really ability reliant. And so its flexibility is a little bit diminished because like you're going to want to get either, if you're playing like a Cherim build or an Eldegoss build, like you're going to want to get those two set up and you're going to be using those abilities all game. And the same thing with like a Venusaur or a Rillaboom deck is, you want to get those set up as soon as possible, be attached into your basic attackers, get your Torterra into the zone. And if your opponent's just like shutting off your abilities, there's not a lot to do. Whereas like these other types have some other things that they can be doing going forward. So grass is really strong. Grass can be really fast and aggressive. It's got a great mid to late game when it can get those abilities set up. So it's a really great choice. I think it's my choice for if you're brand new to Gym Leader Challenge, like here's a deck, try it out, either grass or water. I kind of lean more towards water these days as my beginner deck just because I think it's a little bit more flexible, but grass is still like, this is your linear, like go do stuff deck and it will be really good. And then sometimes you'll get bad prizing and be like, what can I do? But love grass. But at the same time, it can be frustrating.
Oh yeah, grass is one of those decks that is extremely reliant on abilities. But another one that might be a little bit more reliant on abilities as well is, Water and Gallade. They have a lot of abilities in their decks. I know that Psychic, you have Malamar that has the Psychic Recharge ability. You have Xatu that has that ability that lets you attach from your hand, draw two. And you have all these different abilities in the deck as well that adds to its consistency. Not as much as grass, that's for sure. But still, like one of those decks that if you get shut off by like a Slaking or something like that, it's going to be hard to kind of crawl back from that. So I definitely agree with that. Grass, if you had to choose an imposter on the screen, grass might be one of the imposters, but it's still very well rounded. Has a lot of different potentials that you can do And we'll talk about different potential that you have with brewing in your decks. But these are some of the best, also just beginner decks that you can learn how to, use these abilities to the best of its ability. Be able to learn how to sequence your cards correctly, which we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. But there's just so much potential there is to learn in these decks. And, if you're interested, if anybody's interested in learning how to, or like how to approach their first deck, like beginners or anything like that, let us know down in the comments. If you have a friend that's wanting to start GLC or anything like that, just let us know if we need to like have a whole podcast about how to start and begin, and just kind of give you guys an idea of, great beginner decks or great cards or anything like that you can choose from. But well-rounded is probably one of the best. Another one of my favorites as well, but also kind of not part of my play style. Like, I love water deck tank and heal, but sometimes tank and heal, it can only go so far in my head. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. But we do have the jumbo size Wailord that we talked about earlier that has the ability, this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. Really awesome. Effectively, you have 230 HP. And even with that, with the new Wailord, you're still less effective HP, and it's kind of funny. But Wailord, that is an awesome card. We talked about that earlier. We got Rhyperior. I know that in Jeff's locals that this deck just steamrolled some other decks with its wide wall ability, where if it's an active, you can't really boss anything up. It's just there, and it hits 180 for 1 fighting, 2 colorless. It's an awesome card that also has high HP potential, and you can just stick a paw helmet on there. Again, make it effective, 230 HP. And then, we talked about Grass earlier, and Grass has this card called the Bramblegast, and it has the Resilient Soul ability. This Pokemon gets 50 more HP per prize that your opponent has taken. So you can get, a lot of HP. I think 350 HP if your opponent has taken 5 prizes. And that's a big Pokemon, But unfortunately, Hex really takes care of that very easily. And if you already have some damage on there and it's over 100 and you get hexed, it's a goodbye Bramblegast, and you're just another one of those desert rolly guys in the wind. But it does have the Powerful Needles attack, which hits 80 per coin heads that you flip. That's a really fun attack. I like whenever you have another ability in the deck where it doubles your energy, and then you get to just flip coins for days. Those are actually really fun, and we'll get to fun also here in a little bit. And then Copperajah has 200 HP ability, massive body. It basically keeps your opponent from playing stadiums from their hands, so you can stadium lock and have a parallel city stuck up there. You can have a metal lab up there. You can just have any stadium that you want to play and keep it locked up there in your position. That way your opponent can't, bump it with one of their stadiums. They can still bump it with a trainer card, but they just can't bump it with their own stadiums. And then it kind of gives you some flexibility with how hard you want to hit. For 3 metal, 1 colorless, you got Nasal Lariat, where you're hitting for 130. But if you choose to do so, you can hit for 230, adding 100 to that attack. But you can't attack with that Pokemon on the next turn, which there's a lot of potential in Tank and Heal to have a lot of fun and kind of give you some time. It kind of gives you and allows you time to think of a game plan while you are, just tanking and healing this damage.
Yeah. This is one where, when I was starting out my Gym Leader Challenge journey, I wanted to, basically invest in a Take and Heal deck. It was Grass Take and Heal at the time, which had a lot of different tools going on it. There's a Buzz Swole that got, healed itself plus did more damage for each prize that your opponent had taken. It was really a card that I was interested in. I think Torterra had just come around into the mix. So having another 190 huge hitting stage 2 was just awesome on top of all of that. But for me, this playstyle just didn't quite mesh with me, because I see it all the time when people are playing Take and Heal decks. There's not a lot of game actions going on. You get to your end game rather quickly. Here is my big guy. He is big. He hits hard. Hopefully I can draw other cards to get me, but this is my game plan. And so that was something that didn't interest me very much. I'm glad I found that on early. Now I'm switching to other decks that maybe have components of tank and heal to them. But this was just not a play style that I enjoyed personally. And so I branched out. I found other things, and I found, spread and snipe and these well-rounded decks to be more suited to who I was as a person. But I still respect tank and heal. You'll see that every single deck that I build basically has Wailord in mind. Like, I need to hit that 200 damage plus hex. Like, that's where my brain's at. So these are very strong strategies. They're very good strategies, and other people have fun playing them. It's just, I had to figure out for myself, tank and heal wasn't for me.
Yeah. And tank and heal can be fun if you allow yourself to kind of just chill out for a little bit. Like Jeff said, there's not a whole lot of game actions. Every now and then you get to have some big old combo pieces that allow you to take more actions than usual. But again, there's not a whole lot of action happening, and you gotta just get to enjoy the game. You get to put your big guy up there. You get to announce special wave, powerful needles, nasal lariat, and you're just like, okay, KO for knockout. And then you sometimes watch your opponent sweat a little bit, but I sweat a lot as well myself sometimes. So yeah, tank and heal.
The Wailord needs to live. This Wailord needs to live.
Yeah, and needs to live. Has got so much investment on this guy. We need him right now. But tank and heal is one of those decks that are just fun whenever choosing your playstyle. Another playstyle that I am not too accustomed to is control. I know a lot of people love control, and that Jeff has some experience with this, but we have control lists where, again, like we said, Wailord is one of the big guys that we're just keeping a big whale alive the entire time while also controlling your opponent, utilizing cards like counter catcher, reversal energy, and different things like that. We got Ursaluna, which we're trying to keep an Ursaluna alive, as well as just kind of recur cards to be able to heal, use triple acceleration, and you're just kind of making sure that your opponent can't do anything while you're doing that, kind of looping your cards over and over. Then we got Raichu, which just locks you from attacking. So you're just kind of trying to keep you from being able to attack while it does its business as well. And then you have Vileplume and Control Grass, where you're just not letting your opponent play the game at all, be able to play cards out of your hand whatsoever. So these are some very good examples of different types of style of control that you can take part in. And I know that Jeff really I've seen him play Ursaluna and do a really good job with it, and it's pretty fun to actually watch it. I think Ursaluna might be one of the more controlled decks that I would enjoy playing, and I actually enjoy watching it as well.
Yeah, I mean, people peg me as someone who hates control, and I don't actually hate control. My general consensus is that control is very difficult for beginners. And it's not necessarily one of the greatest things if you're trying to grow a local gym leader challenge community, just because you're going to have new players coming in there. And if they get item locked, that's going to be bad beats for them, right? So that's just something to think about. But these control decks, they range from these wall decks with Wailord and Ursaluna, where you're just trying to set up one big bad and kind of, manipulate what you're doing to get these cards to take 6 prizes, to more traditional stall decks, which is what Shock Lock is with this Raichu on the screen. There's even a dual brains Magnezone that lets you play an extra supporter that Espia has been running about, which I actually got a chance to test the other day, and it's really fun to play. And of course, Eggs Mill, which is this Vileplume's up on the screen. There's an Executor too that does all these things. There's these control decks, they control the game, and that's what that Eggs Mill deck likes to do. Hence the name Control. It's a puzzle. That's what it is. If you're someone who just really wants to figure out the puzzle of it, and sometimes that puzzle is just your own puzzle. If you're just trying to set up your thing and do your thing, and you don't really care what your opponent's doing, there are lists for you. If you're trying to be this kind of interactive build, there's a control deck for you. Control is just such a broad term. You need to find what sort of control you want to do. Do you want to dictate your opponent's deck and what's in it, and pick a mill style deck. Fire Mill is not even up on the screen here, but it's a great way to mill and control a different resource aspect of the game, you know? So, you know, I'm not gonna hate on control, because I do really, really like the brain power you need to invest in order to be able to play these decks. But it's going to be really hard for a new player to pick a control deck, pick one of these types that's really good at control, just because it requires a lot of experience, which we'll get into in a bit. So if this is what you're doing, you're coming from standard, you've been playing control in standard, think about these types: water, colorless, lightning, grass. You know, almost every type has its own control variant too. You know, dark has one, psychic has one too. So think about what you want to be doing and, you know, pick that type and stick with control. You do your thing. Just don't show up to my locals when I got a new player coming out who's borrowing a deck for the first time and smash their face in like that. I mean, that's part of it. Like, that's part of a competitive GLC, but it's just like, we need to think about community growth in the back of our minds too. And that's where I'm always at, is how can I make my community better? And part of that includes control players.
Jeff, do you have like an extra deck to the side that's labeled, if somebody brings control, this is their deck? You say, hey, we're going to put your deck aside, put it in your bag. This is the deck you're going to use tonight.
I don't. There was one night where, like, you know, we were a little pressed for time. We were playing at a brewery and they closed at a certain time. And I was like, hey, I know that we had just had some new people kind of come up that were playing control decks that weren't like, I wouldn't say weren't progressive. They were more reactive control decks. So like, it would probably take us longer for their rounds to go. If they decided to play that deck tonight. It's just a gentle reminder. Hey, what's this? But, you know, we had a routes control player show up our league. And if, you know, it might've been his first or second time playing Gym Winter Challenge with us. And it's just like, you know, it's tough to play a control deck when you don't know what the other decks do, because you're trying to dictate what your opponent does a lot of the time. And so there's just that. So I do always bring spare decks, but I'm not going to discourage someone from playing control. I might just do it like a gentle reminder, like, hey, we have some newer players. Let's be nice to our newer players, sort of thing. That's the community I'm trying to foster right now. And, and I might be wrong, but that's where we're at.
No, I completely understand that. But there are times where you have to think about time as well. And there are control decks that can get things done in a timely manner, which I think are more aggressive prize-taking control decks like Leviathan or the Ursa Luna. But then you have more kind of slower control decks like Eggs Mill or Shock Lock, where you're taking up a lot more time. Your opponent may have not a whole lot of actions, but they're going to sit there and think quite a bit, trying to figure out, you know, how do I get out of this? You know, what can I do to get out of this? And depending on the time that you have allotted for a tournament, whether that be 30, 40, 50 minutes, you should also think about that going into it whenever you're playing a control deck, especially if you're, depending on the experience, which we'll kind of talk about later as well, like just kind of keep time in mind and how fast the control deck can take care of its business.
Yeah. I mean, some of these lists are running double turbo energy, so they don't do damage, right? It's like you're actively not trying to KO what's in front of you. And so those games can go longer. So again, my big recommendation to you is pick control deck. Just make sure you're a fast player, get your reps in, because you're going to be the one sweating every single moment of your match, because your opponent is often going to go pass. And then you're going to have to do your loop or whatever you need to do that turn to keep yourself in that position. So you're going to be working a lot harder than what your opponent is. And that's fun. That's fun. Like, the puzzle of it is so fun. Like, setting up Ursa Luna is so fun. Setting up Ursa Luna in a bad matchup is so fun. Like, fighting these losing battles with a control deck is super fun. Like, what's your comeback? So do it and play it. And these are good types to do it.
Yeah, and something that also sometimes can take a lot of actions to get going is a spread snipe deck. We got like spread, snipe. Snipe lets you kind of take control and like hit specific Pokemon on the bench for big damage. Spread, you're spreading a little damage everywhere. But then you have decks also that can do both. They can both spread and snipe. And I'm a big fan of just either one of them. And they also sometimes allow you to have a lot of different actions in the deck as well, or different combo pieces. And with that, we have Electivire that has 2 lightning and 1 colorless, hits for 50 to everything on your opponent's side for 50 damage. It's really nice spread. You can play this alongside Flying Flip Tapu Koko, which does 20 to everything for double colorless. You can also play this with Raichu, hits for 50 to everything that already has damage counters on it as well. It can be really good at being able to, finish if your Electivire can do that spread for 1 to 2 turns. And then we got Kyogre, which is awesome at sniping. For 3 water, 1 colorless, hits 180 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Most of the time you're going to be hitting the bench with this guy, and it's just awesome to be able to hit 180 damage. I really don't ever play the Kyogre. Early on, I wanted to play the Kyogre, but I actually went the Titan route over time. So that's kind of like where I went with it. One of the whales that I chose the Titan whale over the Kyogre whale. That Kyogre is an awesome snipe attack, and it also sends 3 energy back into your hand, which there's 2 different things that can happen there. Your opponent can get rid of that and, disrupt your hand, put it back into your deck. But also it allows you to, maybe you don't want to attack with Kyogre again and you want to load up something else. You have that energy that's in your hand now. And if you play Frostmoth, or if you play Baxcalibur or Blastoise that can get those energies out quicker, this just kind of gives you the ability to be able to do so. You got Hitmonlee, which can do both, or the Hitmon combo deck, where you have to hit with Hitmonchan, hit and run, then you hit with Hitmonlee for a snipe of 90, or you hit with Hitmontop next for 60 to everything, and that just kind of has your snipe 90 with Hitmonlee, and then your spread with Hitmontop, and that's just a really fun whenever you can get that combo off. It's just kind of like board wiping potential to your opponent, especially if you can get that combo done in 1, 2, 3 turns. And then you have Sableye, which has the option on its card, if you want to snipe something off the bench or just spread a lot of damage to anywhere. You can take up to 12 damage counters and put them on your opponent's Pokemon, as long as you have 10 cards of the Lost Zone. But you get to take 12 damage counters and just put them anywhere out on the field, however you want. And then Heatmore, if you have 3 extra energy attached to it, you're also hitting for 90 to active, 180 to a benched Pokemon. So it's like Kyogre, but you have to have 3 extra energy. But it plays the Charizard, which doubles your energy, which allows you to be able to hit those numbers without having to have, actually 6 energy on that Pokemon. But, I know that Jeff and I really enjoy spread and snipe. But, I say that, and I don't even have my favorite spread deck on here, which is the Jumpluff Rapid Strike Scroll of Swirls deck on here.
Yeah. That was my first spread deck, was Grass Spread, thinking back to that Celebi, the XY Celebi promo card that has 1 damage counter for 1 energy, and then can deny a prize on a coin flip by getting shuffled back into your deck. Really cool card, but that Grass Spread deck never really quite clicked with me, or kind of, didn't really give me the results that I was looking for with the spread deck. But I hope every day it's like my copium, I'll pull up that Celebi and just look longingly in the mirror. It's like, is today the day? The answer is always no, but yeah, I just hope that Celebi is such a cool card. But I love spread decks. Spread is so unique in TCGs, at least in my experience, coming from Magic. You don't really have anything quite like spread. You have maybe board wipe cards in Magic the Gathering, whereas in these spread attacks are just so unique, benching Mons and being able to hit things on the bench and take multiple prizes. It's just such a really cool thing. Obviously, there's a lot of counterplay to it, which I really love the interactive element that spread decks have. Your opponents can do so many things to kind of stop your spread from being effective. At the same time, they need to get into their game plan, and by spreading, you're disrupting what they're trying to do. Bench barrier versus silent lab comes into play. There's all these really unique interactions that come into a spread matchup that I just really, really relish. And that's why I'm really attracted to spread decks. Snipe is just so good. This Kyogre here, just being able to pick and choose which of your opponent's Pokemon you get to get off the board, just one of the most powerful things you can do in this game. Hitmonlee's 90 is just perfect. Like that hits Drizzile, that hits, you know, Octillery. There's so many others, you know,
Yeah.
that Alice Halucha hits, Grottle. You know, there's so many different things you can do, and like people think of Hitmon Bros as this spread deck. No, it's a turn 2 snipe deck, baby. That's where games are won and lost on that special combo. And then you look at what Fire has too. Like this Heatmore is so sick. It's a comeback mechanic on top of that, being able to potentially take 2 KOs by itself. But even like the Ninetales, there's a Ninetales that, you know, for 2 energy does 90 damage counters to one of your opponent's Pokemon. And we talked about that 90 damage being kind of a key point. You know, Ninetales being able to hit that is good. So I think Fire Snipe is a real deck too. And then, I mean, Psychic Lost Zone is just like the epitome of like a linear combo deck that has this ability to just be like, I'm going to pick and choose which of your mons get to stay. And if you present me 6 prizes that are pretty easy to pick off, that's on you. And so that, again, that benching versus these Psychic Lost Zone matchups, you know, what you're doing versus what they're doing, it's just so interactive and so interesting to me. And this is really, really, really where like, this is all I want to be doing a Gym Leader Challenge is I want to be playing spread and I want someone to be stopping me from playing spread. Like that's all I want.
I know. And that's what Lost City does. It stops you from playing some of these spread decks.
Don't talk to me about
Well, we're not going to get into that. Something that we could also mention is, you know, Wo Chien has been seeing some success as well. It's like a later on down the road double snipe deck as well. If you can get, you know, your prizes down then and be able to pull off a couple Wo Chien attacks at the end. It does 120 to 2 of your Pokemon on the bench. And what is it to the active?
30, I believe.
30.
Yeah.
So it does 30 damage, and then the 2 Pokemon on your opponent's bench, it does 120 damage. So that's another card or deck that can, you know, take some heavy knockouts pretty quickly at the end. You might think you have it, but then you might not have it whenever you thought you had it. So make sure you're keeping everything nice and clean at the end of your game if you're playing against a Wo Chien deck.
Yeah. Parallel yourself. This big shout out if you're playing against spread decks. Parallel facing yourself, get rid of those damaged mons off your bench, deny your opponent's prizes. And of course, always play your bench barrier. That is a Baischism. Always play your bench barrier, chat. Always.
A Baischism, man. I love it. We got the Baischist advice ever.
Just trying to be the very Baisch.
So those are the different play styles that we are going to get into PEAPs. And then the next one, we got experience. So this is all sorts of different encompassing things that we need to think about whenever you're going into like picking the deck that you want to play. So you have your play style, but then do you have the in-depth knowledge of the card pool and the interactions? Like Jeff said early in the spread decks, there's a lot of different interactions that you're going to have with cards, with bench barriers, stadiums, and different things like that, different tools, all sorts of different things you have to think about whenever you are playing certain types of play styles. And then you have resource management. Resource management is very, very important in control decks. If you can't get a hold of you playing like different style cards and knowing what's in the discard, what's in the deck, what's in your hand, what's out there, and you make a mishap turn, that is not going to be good for a player that's wanting to play a control deck. You have to have very, very high resource management skills whenever you are thinking about the play style of deck that you're playing. And then you have correct sequencing, which is also something like that goes into control, but also like those well-rounded decks where, hey, am I going to get this supporter and then be able to use this card at the same time? Or because sometimes the more options that you have, the more options that can bog your mind down into, you know, there's too many decisions to make. So you have to know which is the right decision. And then you have the simplicity of decks. Like you have your simple decks that have a high skill ceiling. So some of those water decks are very simple to do, or like a dragon deck. Sometimes they can be simple to do, especially now with some of the new cards that have come out. Dragon has gotten more simpler. But you have simple decks that have a high skill ceiling if you have the experience to do so. And then also like control decks, you have to have the skill to pilot those decks. Like Jeff said earlier, like You cannot be a slow player when playing a slow deck naturally. You have to be able to, make all these different actions with. I'm a naturally slow player, so you won't be seeing me play too many control decks out there. But, if I had to play a control deck, we might have to have a 3-hour time cap on that game because I'm going to have to try to figure out that puzzle, But whenever you are making your, what type should I choose? You have all this different experience.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. When I think about, what people are looking to get out of, Gym Leader Challenge, like, you look at these, people that really want to be the sequence kings, you're the sync queen of the game. And, you look at, psychic. That Psychic Lost Zone deck just requires so much sequencing. When are you going to play your Colorless? How are you going to get it back? All these different things kind of come into your brain. So if you're someone who's looking for correct sequencing and you have a lot of that experience, or you're looking to get better at it, look at the psychic type. That type will be, one of those things that will really help you build that skill. Resource management. You look at lightning as a type. Zebstrika is your workhorse draw power, but you have to discard your hand. When is it correct to sprint away your hand to draw 4 more? That's something that you're going to have to figure out, and you'll get better at these things. So again, some of these types are really going to test you on certain levels, and that's really, really cool. So again, pick your type accordingly. It's a big choice.
Yes, and there's so much that goes into this. We can make a whole thing by itself of like how we can go about it. But then like going off into experience, like, do you have competitive experience? Do you want to be competitive? Because if you want to be competitive, a lot of the time, no matter how competitive you want a deck to be, it's just not going to make that cut. There are outliers where sometimes you draw the stones and you're just killing it with that deck, which I've done that with the grass spread deck, but I know that it's not the best deck. Competitive, do you want to be competitive? And then you have the brew potential of decks. So brew potential could be very heavy into decks that have like water, psychic, have all sorts of different archetypes within that type. So like, what can you do in that type? I know that metal has very little that you can do. There's like 2 different styles. You can do light metal, which is low to the ground energy usage, kind of hits. And then you have tank and heal. And there's not a whole lot that goes into it. You have like slightly different Pokemon that you might play, but those are like the only 2 that you can really play in metal. But then you have in like psychic, you have the Sableye, you have Tinkaton Delayed, you have Psychic Spread, you have a new Psychic Control deck I've been kind of hearing about, and then all sorts of different archetypes within that type. So like, do you want a deck that has all sorts of different ways and you can just buy all the different cards to be able to brew all the different styles of that type? And then you have for fun. And going back to that grass spread deck, that is my for fun deck. Like if I want to have some fun, I want to play that grass spread. I'm going to try to pull off all those different combos that are just impossible because it's like a 9-card combo. But when you pull it off, it feels so good. And then when you pull it off, sometimes it just doesn't even do the job then. So you have all these different things to think about. And just the experienced, in just the experienced version of PEAP, there's so many things to think about, Jeff.
Yeah. And when I think about like where I fall as a player, like I kind of want to be all 3 of these things, right? Like I want to play for fun. And obviously we all have our own subjective definition of what fun is, right? But I always want to play with a build that I don't want to say like made myself, but obviously it has some personal choices, and that's where that brew potential comes in. And I want to be competitive. I mean, it's fun to win, and it's fun to win with your deck, and it's fun to win with your deck when it's something that you're trying to do that's also like a fun thing to do, right? When I won my fire badge and I was trying really hard to find that fire list that worked for me, and I got to Crisis Punch Chore Chick 2 times that day.
Yeah.
Like that was fun. It was something brewed together. It was competitive. It was great. So again, I'm looking for all 3 of these things, and that's the experience I really want. Now, if I were to tell you what types I think fit best into these 3 categories, I think you're going to see a lot of similarities between competitive and brew potential because you're going to see a large card pool. So I think that like Colorless, Psychic and Water are probably like my top 3 competitive builds, but they're also, I think, the top 3 for brew potentials because of all the different consistency engines that exist already within those types. Grass is another one that I think is a little underexplored in terms of brew potential. There's a lot of different cool things that you can do with grass. It usually just involves evolutions, which is something that can kind of get a little murky in a Gym Leader Challenge. And then if you're looking for the ultimate fun, try Fairy. I mean, I know that type doesn't really exist anymore. And as a GLC content creator, I've got mixed feelings about telling people to play Fairy. But man, Fairy has some wonderful like support Pokemon, and some of the lines that you get to pull off are great. And then at the end of doing all these awesome, amazing things, the maximum you can hit is 130 damage. That is peak fun sometimes. So just things to look at.
Man, something to hope for is Fairy to come back. I would love for
Don't be telling people that, Josh. Don't be telling people. It's not coming back, guys. It's not. Don't listen to Josh. I know you can hope. I know he wants hope. You can hope. You can hope. But don't. It's not happening. But I'm not going to give
Dragon came back. So Fairy has to come back.
They didn't say Dragon wasn't coming back. They've said Fairy is not coming back. All right. I'm going to trust them with their word about that. But like Xerneas is only ever going to hit 130, guys, and then not be able to attack the next turn. Like that's your best attacker in Fairy. And you get to power it up with Togetis, which is super sweet. Like there's so many. Whimsicott is a better Roserade. It's got free retreat. It's busted. It's absolutely busted. I think it even has like a better attack. Like it's actually useful. But yeah, its Fairy is still fun and will never, ever, 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 ever have another card printed for it.
Dude, it's such a shame too, unfortunately.
I know. We played you mentioned Rhyperior, the guy who played that Rhyperior build at my locals came over and we streamed a match, and I was playing Fairy that night. We didn't get to play each other, so I was like, let's play Fairy versus your Rhyperior deck, and Fairy won, and I was like, I won a match with Fairy on stream.
There you go, man.
That's it, man. That's the ultimate fun, very potential competitive Fairy, baby.
That it's all three. It's all 3 in one. You better be battle hardened when going into a tournament with Fairy. Just expect anything to happen. And then, we have availability in PEAP. So this availability is A in PEAP, and this right here was one of the reasons why I started with water and why I have this water deck and why I've eventually been able to just, forge this water deck through the fire of Mount Doom. It's just, or is it Mount Doom or Mordor? In the Mordor. Anyways,
I think they're synonymous. I think Mount Doom is in Mordor.
Okay, there we go. We've got it. Anyways, that's where I made this water deck right here. I'm sweating. I'm on the ground. I got all my cards on the ground. I was like, what can I build? I got a bunch of water cards. Let's make water. So that is how I made water. And those were just the ones that were immediately available physically to me. So that's kind of how I started choosing my type. I didn't think about play style because I had no idea that there was just a vast amount of play style. Even though I've been playing Pokemon for a while, I wasn't even thinking about that when thinking about like the Gym Leader Challenge types, because I didn't know the different styles. There was just so many different styles. I had no idea yet. And anyways, those were the cards that were immediately available to me. And also financially, like how expensive are the cards that you need? Like at the time, GLC cards, whenever I got started, were not very expensive. And as time went on and the format gained more popularity, it's, a lot of cards have skyrocketed relative to where they were at back in 2022, 2021. So I was able to, get a few cards off some friends for for free, and was able to build this water deck because it was both financially and immediately available to me physically that I had. And anyways, that's what I chose, and I really enjoyed it and loved it. Now, there's a metal deck that I've been trying to get into the hang of, and it's a tank and heal deck. And I I like Tank and Heal. I want to like Tank and Heal. But at the same time, I don't like Tank and Heal because, you know, like we talked about earlier, there's just like, okay, my big guy's here, attack. Okay, my big guy's still here, attack, you know. And I really enjoy Tank and Heal, but at the same time, I just can't get into it. I want to have more decisions to make. I don't want to play control. What other decks give me a lot of decisions? So some of those well-rounded decks give me a lot of decisions. Spread decks, most notably combo spread decks that have a lot of decisions to make, and like resource management. I really enjoy resource management and sequencing and playing lots of cards. So those are some things that, you know, I enjoy as well. But to bring it back to financially, you know, since it was my first deck, I love the deck. I've been really, you know, putting it through the works. I decided to invest in it as my main deck that I love and to bling it out, you know. And I'm only choosing one deck to bling out. If I got any other bling cards, I'll put them in other decks. But financially, now I can, you know, I've been building up this. I got a picture of it on the last podcast, or you can see it on X, but I'm slowly getting this deck to full blinged out. I just bought 6 Celebrations Water Energies, the Japanese, no, not Celebrations, the Japanese, what is that big fancy box that just came out not too long ago? The classic collection, Yeah, so I bought some Japanese version classic collection water energies, and they look beautiful. They got the gold border, and it's just hollow all around. They're awesome. And anyways, you know, I'm slowly getting this guy up because anyways, I love it. And, you know, Jeff, I don't know if this played much of a role whenever you started GLC, but this was like the main reason why I started, because it was just there for me to be able to build.
I mean, yeah, when I started GLC, it was all PTCGO. So like I was playing online mostly. And, you know, back then you were trading packs for cards and stuff like that. So, you know, it was basically just me and one of my friends just trying to play Gym Leader Challenge. And we were very proxy friendly with each other, you know, at the start. So financial didn't really play a role into it. Obviously I liked actually owning the physical cards. So, you know, and also coming from, you know, Magic the Gathering, like when I look at expensive Pokemon cards, I'm like, are you guys kidding me? Like that's just where I'm mentally anchored, is like, there are very, very expensive Magic the Gathering cards, and Pokemon is extremely affordable in comparison. So I won't scoff anyone for being like, this is expensive in Pokemon, but just like where my brain was at before, where I was spending money on like modern decks, where like a normal deck at like a minimum lane was like $1,200. And then you could even go like above and beyond that to make a deck like $2,400. I was just like, you know what? 25 cents for this card, we're good. $1 for Guzma Halas, which are now way more than that. I was like, $1 for Guzma Hala, give me 8. So I own like 10 Guzma Halas right now, and don't even bat an eye at it. But for the financial aspect, never really played too much of the game for me. It's always like, I'll proxy it first, and if I like the deck, I'll go ahead and buy it. So again, that's something you can do. Hey, proxy the deck. There are a lot of proxy friendly places out there. My locals is very proxy friendly. So, you know, we just have to have a colored printed version of the card and you're good to go. If your entire deck is proxied, it can be an issue. But we've also got loaner decks. Like that's the great thing about a community, is if you just ask, people will loan it to you, I'm sure. So something else to look for. If you're looking for financial decks, I feel like it's probably best to kind of like mention maybe some to kind of stay away from, like some types to stay away from if you're looking at financial, being a big factor in determining what your deck is. Number one is grass. Grass has a couple, like Roserade is a little pricey. The Shining Genesect, which might have been power crept out of the format a bit recently, but I think there are some decks that are still maybe playing it. Shining Genesect was like $10. But the rest of the deck isn't that expensive whatsoever. Roserade is a hard piece to replace, but there are definitely other things you can play instead. So don't let just the Roserade hold you back. And if Shining Genesect was something that was giving you difficulty, now there's like Tapu Bulu. Now people are playing Bramble Gas. So like that card is less important in the mix. People have mentioned Dragon to me before. I think maybe it's less about the price of the cards and maybe more about having access to like the Gabite. I think the Gabite is like the big sticking point. I think the Dragon Call Gabite is a little bit difficult to find, but I think the other pieces are relatively reasonable. I think Double Dragon is maybe like between the $5 to $10 range too. So that's like another type. But on the flip side, like Water has had a ton of recent printings. Like you look at some of the best Water cards. Baxcalibur is one that's like it replaced Blastoise, which used to be one of the more expensive cards. It's like 25 cents. So like Water is a good one to start out for. Psychic too, because again, a lot of the good Psychic Pokemon that have been printed have been recent printing. So you might even have them just in your standard bulk. Go grab yourself a Tinkaton and go play, the Tinkaton Gallade list and you'll be fine. So I think those are kind of the better end of financial, and then like Grass and Dragon and maybe some other types I'm forgetting are kind of on the other side and stuff. And I think that covers immediate available physically too. Like your LGS probably has a ton of Water and a ton of Psychic cards laying around. Probably even Colorless, now that I think about it too, is probably another good one I bet your LGS has Colorless cards for you guys to buy.
Yeah, they should always have, most places should have a lot of, especially the most recent cards that you'll need for different decks. Sometimes the older cards are kind of hard to find, and you can go to like places that aren't even like LGSs, and maybe like I don't know if everybody has like game exchanges or anything like that to where they just have a bunch of bulk cards. I'm sure there's like places that sell like old video games and books and DVDs usually have a place where bulk is located, and you can just rummage through all that stuff. And I've found some like stacks of just GLC cards and just things that you would always need, staples that you would always need on hand, and just get $100 worth of cards for $10. So you can always find some really good deals out there, but you just got to search a little bit.
Yeah, I found an OG Colress for 25 cents. The bargains are out there. You just got to find them.
Yeah, they are out there, and sometimes I will not build a deck until I find that good deal. Like sometimes I won't. I'll just have the decks aside with some of the cards and just slowly fill it in. Like I had this fire deck that I got it low on the priority list, and I just have like some of the cards that I've had, and if I get extras, I'll just stick it in there until it's fully built, because it's just I don't want to put too much time and energy into it right now. But someday, Jeff, that deck will be built.
I'm the opposite. I have 23 decks built. Like I'm staring over my wall up here. Like whenever I want a deck, I'm just like, let's get it going. Let's go. I'll maybe proxy it for a bit, but then I just like write myself a little note on the side, order this card later. And it's mostly just because like I have the card, it's just in another deck, and I'm just too lazy to switch them back and forth. This is where like another cool thing, buy same colored sleeves so you can interchange cards, because you're going to have, probably 4 or 5 different supporters, maybe 10 to 12 different item cards that you could just really easy pour over from one deck to another, and that will make your life a ton easier if all your cards are in Dragon Sleeve, Jet Blacks, or something like that. Like just same sleeve, switch them over.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. And I used to do that, and then I was like, no, I have to color code the types, because I don't do that with my standard cards. Because standard, I keep everything pink diamond. And GLC, I was like, I'm going to go all the different colors of the types that coincide with it. And it's just kind of turned into a chore, but I've already put myself here, so I will stay here for as long as humanly possible. And if we could possibly get a Dragon Shield sponsor, and they did, wouldn't mind sending us like sleeves here and there, and because I love Dragon Shield. I talk about Dragon Shield all the time to people that ask about sleeve, just what they want in the sleeve. And I like Dragon Shield a ton. I think they're really good, and just the selection that they have is phenomenal.
You hear that, Dragon Shield? Josh needs colored sleeves for all his decks. All right, let's get it done.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say it
every day.
I'm jealous because I'm colorblind, so color coding things is the absolute like worst for me. So like, I'll go ahead and show you guys, because I know that some of the things that get commented on the most in our streams are like the random stuff that we say. Like I think that when we talked about the desk pile gang, people were really excited about that. But like I've stopped color coding, and every single one of my decks is just in these black like containers, and I've stickered them with a type to let me know. So like everything is exactly the same, because I just can't deal with colors. So this is where we're at. Give me the sticker Give me the Pokemon. This one's got what was that, Garchomp and Alakazam on it. It's got one spoon, so it's Kadabra. That's easier for me than color coding.
Bro, I always forget that you're colorblind.
Me too. It only comes up when something's colored.
And you're like, oh yeah, that's not the same color I'm seeing right now. It's like black and white, seeing an old Tommy movie, man.
Not quite that bad. I have a red deficiency. So just imagine if you saw blue and purple as the exact same color, because I can't see the red and purple. That's how I live my life. The other day, there was the guy from Chicago was doing the survey where he was asking people about gym leader challenge types and all that stuff. Yeah. And the graphs were color coded, and I was like, not even gonna bother looking at the results. Like, this is not for me. This is not for my people.
I could see that. Yeah, that would be really hard to read. Oh man, that's good. And then lastly, in PEAP, we got Pokemon. What is your favorite Pokemon? Mine is Metagross, and I am disappointed because it belongs in like a metal deck, and it's either tank and heal or light metal, like a lo-fi, low to the ground metal list. And I really want it to make a tank and heal list that plays Metagross, and I just can't get it to work really, really, really well to my liking. So, and it's not even a fun deck either, really. And it's just so upsetting. Like, I like to make decks that surround my favorite Pokemon. That's also beyond availability. I also have, some of those Deluge Blastoise. And I was like, yes, I get to use this guy again. And, anyways, whenever Baxcalibur got announced, I was actually just sad, and I wanted to figure out how I could just get rid of Baxcalibur, and thus Satine and Wailord was born. So like, I saw Neon Cities did well with both Baxcalibur and Blastoise, and I was like, you know what? I should have done that a long time ago. I just never did it.
That's the way to go, man. Like, just skip the Frosmoth. No one, I don't know. That's not my favorite, obviously. It might be someone's favorite, but like, I don't care about an ice moth. Like moths bother me. They fly into my house. They go to my lights. I want to swat them away. No. Give me turtle. Give me water turtle. Give me ice dragon. Those are the two things I want, not ice bug.
Yeah, because Metagross is my absolute favorite. And then you have like Blastoise is one of my favorites as well. Not even a favorite starter, but just one of my favorites. We got Rayquaza in there, but Rayquaza doesn't have a good card in GLC whatsoever, and that is absolutely insane to me. And then we got Tinkaton, which I recently took Tinkaton out of my deck to play a new, variant of a Dragapult, Dusknoir psychic deck that I'm trying to mess with and whatnot. So I'm just, I'm at a crossroads right now, I think Wailord, I'm trying to make Wailord one of my favorites, but he's not my favorite. He's just a big whale, man. We got those in real life. We got those IRL. We got big whales in real life.
I'm gonna be honest. I think some of the best Pokemon designs are the ones that are just like, that's an animal. My favorites, and a favorite misnomer again. I got like 7 that I just really, really want to play. And so like, Krabby is behind me somewhere. Where you at, Krabby? Krabby's my man. He's up here somewhere. Just very fortunate that there is a playable Krabby that has a spread attack, Aqua Shower, 1 energy, does 10 everywhere. It's got 2 retreat, so it's not the best, in 80 HP, so it's not even searchable off of Buddy Poffin. But you know what? It's fine. It's playable. I've won games with it. I just love that, and it's got great art. So Aqua Shower Krabby is like one of my favorite cards in Gym Leader Challenge for that reason. 3 prize Crobat. There's a lot of like playable Crobats. Crobat is one of my absolute favorites. Played it in Gold and Silver, the VGC, a lot. So like, having the opportunity to like play it in the card game is great. Got my Dark badge. Basically got to 3 prize KO a Vulpix from a water deck, and I was like, yep, don't have to kill Wailord if I just take 3 prizes elsewhere. So that was super awesome. Meganium has been one of my favorites, and I lost a little bit of my soul to that one because Meganium is so good. But in order to make that deck kind of work, I had to play Item Lock, which I hate doing, is because, but it made the deck work. And so I'm playing Item Lock Vileplume so that people couldn't Field Blower away my Lux Cape on my Torterra, so I could take 6 prizes sleep with my Torterra. And then that deck also had Arboliva, which, again, I've said this story tons of times. My son's name is Oliver, and we used to call him Small Oliver or Smoliver. So Smoliv is one of my favorites, and I got to play Smoliv in that deck alongside Meganium. So that deck just has like such a special place in my heart. So like when I was, picking my first type, I was like grass. And I know people are like, Baisch, you just said you hated grass like 3 or 4 weeks ago. You said it was the worst type. No, I love grass. Grass is like my favorite. So that was my first type to pick. I was like, that's it. Grass it is, baby. And so Meganium was there. I found JW's list that we had on a couple weeks ago. That was my list. Let's go, baby.
Oh yeah. And humble beginnings, you got the grass. You've said, hey, grass has got to be, one of the worst types. I don't think it's the worst type anymore. I think some other ones have kind of come up, and it might be the most mid type.
I've always thought of it as like the entry point to the format. Like if you play Rillaboom Venusaur deck, like if you test your deck against it and your deck can beat or be competitive with Rillasaur, it's probably okay enough to take to your locals and play some games and maybe win.
Yeah. On those color coded charts that you could not read, grass was literally the most mid deck. So you have like, cards that types that were on one side that clearly were voted better, and then some that were clearly voted worse. Fire was like one of the worst ones alongside fairy, and then some metal and lightning. And then you had like psychic, colorless, water, and then you had grass just right there in the middle. And it's like on 5 and 6 you had like little, like this little, and then it would kind of get smaller as it went to the edges. So it was like this perfect like bell curve, or like if you ever like edit videos, you can kind of see sound kind of come up and then down, and that's exactly what grass did. So right there, it was kind of funny. I was like, grass has got to be mid, and that's probably a worse place to be than the worst day.
Yeah.
Anyways, it kind of made me laugh. But what's your favorite Pokemon? Whenever you're going into GLC and you're picking, what type, what's your favorite Pokemon? Start there, I think, because you might, end up wasting a lot of time if it doesn't go with all your play style and stuff like that. So find your favorite Pokemon, see what deck it fits best in. And if it's not your favorite play style, you got your heart broken out of the way, and you can then move on to bigger and better decks out there.
Yeah. And I'll actually say that my experience is actually very much the opposite of this. I started playing some of my favorite Pokemon and found that those decks weren't really what I wanted from Gym Leader Challenge, especially in the early days. And then I found Hitmonbros, and I hate fighting Pokemon. Like in the video game, fighting Pokemon are some of my least favorite. Like across the board. I did not like Hitmontop, Hitmonchan at all. But that deck, the play style of that deck was what I really enjoyed more. So like where Josh is saying, go pick your favorite Pokemon and start there. My suggestion might be, figure out what you want from this format first, and then maybe decide, is it that you want to play your favorite Pokemon, or is it that you'd rather win games, or would you rather be competitive, or would you rather have like fun from your play style? So start at that moment. Again, I think that starting with your favorite Pokemon is great. It's what I did, and it got me into this format. But I found something that was more enjoyable to me through all these other mediums, and honestly, it fits into PEAP still too.
Yeah. And just, again, remember PEAP whenever you are choosing the type that you want to build. Okay. So, that being said, we got Drake here choosing one type to play in GLC. Man, don't do that. Building a deck of every type. You betcha, bro. Let's do it.
She used to call me on my Rotom phone.
Oh yeah, I got one deck. I got 2 decks. One to have fun, one to win.
I mean,
Go.
At this point, I've got like every single type today. I was like trying to just like kind of sit down and be like, maybe I need to kind of switch out some of these decks. So I do have some decks, but I was just, since I streamed Gym Leader Challenge, I was like, this deck just exists for that. So I was like switching it out. Like, I don't really play Psychic Lost on that much. So I was switching it over to a different Psychic deck today. And I was like, yes, owning all these decks is great. So, that's fine. There's some people that own one deck. There's some people that own 23 decks. I don't even know what the record is. Tell us down below in the comment section how many decks of each type you have. I think someone the other day was like, yeah, I finally got one of every type. And I was like, I remember those days when I only had one of each type. At this point, I'm like, should I get Routes Control just so I could have 2 fairy decks? Like, I think I have 3 dark decks built. And I know, like, dark is like the least diverse type, but I've got Crobat Spread up there. I've got Poison, and I've got the traditional Guzzlord. I was like, I just got 3 dark decks for whatever reason.
Yeah, just straight up. I actually kind of took apart my Pallid Seismitoad and, Palafin deck. I was like, man, I play this like 0. Whenever I built it, I was like, oh, this is going to be so exciting. I had the Feraligatr in there because Feraligatr is also like one of my favorites. And anyways, I was like, man, this isn't my play style too much. There's a lot of evolving stage 2s in here. And it's like, do I want to build up Feraligatr first? Do I want to build up Seismitoad first? They kind of have different play styles too. So like whenever you're thinking of your play style, like you want to build Seismitoad to like disrupt your opponent and to make them have to put more energy out to attack. But then do you just want to hit big with Feraligatr? So you got to think about like, try not to force things whenever you're wanting to do things, because sometimes you might just end up being upset because it just never works. And you only get to play finite GLC and good quality GLC at that.
Oh, yeah. And you also hear us up here being like, hey, guys, we made every decision like in the book when we've been picking decks. And we're still like, I don't know what deck to play. So like, if you're someone who's struggling to make the decision on what type you want to play, like it's fine. Like we've all been through that. We've all probably bought cards that we've like put in a deck and been like, I don't like this. I bought an early iteration of what Grass Control was. It was Grass Mill back in the day. It wasn't the exact Eggs Mill deck. And I remember sitting down to play it and being like, no, this is not for me. I still have like the Durant that's just like sitting in my Grass Bulk over here. Like, nope, never playing that card again. I made that mistake. It's all right. Make mistakes. Remember, some of the cards are only 25 cents. Proxy before you buy is always a good thing, I'll say. And, hopefully with Twin Leaf getting more and more cards, you'll be able to digitally test your cards for free on a simulator before you buy them. And that's cool. And then hopefully content creators will pop up and show us what all these cool decks are too. So you'll have a good vision of what you want to pick before you move into that place. So, hey, there's a lot of variables. Remember PEAP. Josh, PEAP it up. You're my peeps.
Yeah. Always PEAP it up. Please stop. Play style, experience, availability, and what's your favorite Pokemon? With that being said, thanks for watching, guys. Or if you're listening, thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Unfazed Facts Podcast. I'm Joshua Benson with my co-host, Jeff Baisch. And we hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll see you later. Stay thankful.